Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They'll change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. It says there may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter. And there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We do not crawl before anyone. And that sums up the instructions on steps 8 and 9. The book is highly, highly specific, and my experience is most of what I hear in AA around amends is not in this book. I don't think there's much doubt in any of our minds as we went through this together about this making of amends, is there? We must not shrink at anything. We must be willing to go to any lengths, willing to lose position, reputation. Now, I'll share this experience again. I could give you a lot of stories about amends and the incredible things that happen. But my experience most of all with all that, how free do you want to get? I don't have any future till I clean up my past. Amends are spiritual exercises. I shared this with a friend. Another reason I like to do the 3x5 cards, when I'm done, I put them in groups. Here's what the groups look like. Remember I said I put a plus or minus? I take all the minuses, the ones I don't want to do, and I put them here. All the pluses here. If I got some amends out of state, I put them here, and I put financial over here. Now I have 4 distinct groups. I said to Don, well, how do I get the willingness to make the one I don't want to make? He said, by starting to make amends to the ones you're willing to make. And I did that, and I began to see that this was kind of a neat deal. The other neat piece is as I make the amend, I can throw the card away. There are 2 times when I'm going through the steps that inanimate objects talk to me. One of them happens in inventory. I'm writing inventory, and I set it in my office, and I'm walking down and I go to my bedroom at night, and I hear this thing out of the office. Mark, I'm your inventory, and I'm sitting in here, and I'm waiting for you. You ever had that happen with your inventory? It talks to you? Here's the other time. Here's why the amend cards are so neat. Those cards, 3x5 cards, you can carry with you. So you have them in your briefcase. You go to open your briefcase, go sit down back at your desk, and you hear this voice. Mark, I'm that guy you screwed out of $500. I'm here. The amend cards, if they're there, I'm carrying them with me all the time. You know why? We're going to read instructions. The day I begin to make amends, I begin to operate in steps 10 and 11, and my sole function is to finish amends. If I make a list on an 8.5, 11 by piece of paper, my experience in working with people, they may or may not look at that list once a month or once a week. But you get all these 3x5 cards, and you begin each day. When I started amends, my sponsor only had one question for me. When I saw him, it wasn't even a low. It was, how many amends do you have left? I know this works. There's a lady sitting in this room that left here 60 days ago and started with like 65 amends. She's only got 22 left. I told you, there's a man sitting in this room, went down to Trinidad. I love this when people say, well, I can't go make all the amends. His story's like one of hundreds. Hopped a plane, spent his own money, went down to Trinidad and spent a month making every amend he was consciously aware of. I love this story. You guys will get a kick out of this. You know how they do amends on Trinidad because it's an island? When it comes time for amends, the sponsor comes and picks up the protege and takes him on every single amend. Wow. I'd love to have my sponsor with me. But think about that. That'd be kind of a neat deal. It is possible to finish all your amends. How much freedom do you want? Are you really willing to go to any length? There are levels of freedom in this program. And it does get down to, how much freedom do you want? You will have more of a future as you cleaned up the past. Because the things that have you blocked from God and other people get removed from you. Are amends easy? No. Are they fun? No. Are they rewarding? Absolutely. To get free from your past. There's nothing like it in the world. The day when you finish the last one. The absolute last one. And you know in your conscious memory, there's no harm left that you haven't attempted to clean up. Give you an idea, the book talks about I'll send out an honest letter. Here's what I do on amends from the past, a long time ago. First of all, I try and find an address. If I can't find an address, I try and think, is there someone I know that knows them? If not, I can go to the library in the town I think they're living in, try and find them. And if I have a real old address, even if I know it's not any good, I write the letter and send the letter out into the universe. Then I've met the criteria of the book. I've done my utmost to make that amend. Some interesting things happen off that stuff. I think I'd like to stop. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to take a look at the promises, and then I'm going to show you some stuff with 10 and 11. Okay? We are heading into the home stretch here. Probably about another hour and a half, and we'll be finished here. Page 83. Bottom of the page. We read, I stressed a lot the promises in the big book, and I did that because we read the first promise on the title page. We read some incredible promises in the second step. We read about a lot of promises after we made our third step decision. Some of the most powerful promises in the whole book come after I've shared my inventories with somebody. Fifth step promises. There were promises after the seventh step. And now we're going to take a look at the promises we get about what happens when I attempt to go out and clean up the wreckage from my past. So page 83, bottom of the page says, if I am painstaking about this phase of my development, highlight the word painstaking, I will be amazed before I am halfway through. Now let me explain what halfway through means. If I have 100 amends, it means that I will be amazed before I get to 50. I have had different experiences. I have sometimes been amazed at what happens when I finish my cards. I have been amazed when I finished all of them, and I've been amazed when I'm halfway through, so I've had all different experiences. But here's some of the promises I get as a result of being painstaking about this phase of my development, making amends. I'm going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. I will not regret the past, nor will I wish to shut the door on it. I will comprehend the word serenity, and I will know peace. No matter how far down the scale I've gone, I will see how my experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. I will lose interest in selfish things, and I will gain interest in my fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. My whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave me. I will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle me. I will suddenly realize that God is doing for me what I could not do for myself. Sometimes when I get to page 84, having had experience with all the promises in this book, I'm overwhelmed by how much God loves me. We're not talking just little promises of you're going to have a nice day here. We're talking about being rocketed into the fourth dimension called the world of the Spirit, and literally every single area of your life being dramatically changed, and most of all, that interior change that takes place. Goes on to say, are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. That sentence might speak to me about how long I take to make amends. Next sentence I think is very important. These promises will always materialize if I work for them. We've been shown how to work for them, haven't we? Go make the amends. I want to share some stuff in 10 and 11. I've been able to spiritually understand these steps more in the last 2 years than ever before, and in particular in the last year. And that's what I want to share with you. I hear in meetings that 10 and 11 are maintenance steps. They are not maintenance steps for me at all. They are growth steps, tremendous growth steps. So let's go through and take a look at what happens. Now, it says this thought brings us to step 10. What do you think the book means when it says this thought? The thought is those promises will materialize if I continue to make my amends. That's the thought. So, when we look at the instructions in the big book, the day that I got through with all my cards and I was going to start making the first amend was the day my sponsor said, come on over to the house and we're going to sit down and go over the instructions on the 10th and 11th step. And the reason is, we're going to read in the 10th step, the instruction is, I commence this way of living as I vigorously clean up the past. I was at a meeting not long ago, and a person was out making amends, and we talked a little bit afterwards, and I was explaining to them how I used 10 and 11 to go make amends, and they said, my sponsor told me not to do anything with 10 till I was done with amends. I was flabbergasted. I can't conceive of making amends without using 10 and 11 to get the power to go make the amends, let alone live in the world. So let's look at what this step says. This thought, the idea of finishing amends, brings me to step 10, which suggests that I continue to take personal inventory, fourth step, and continue to set right any new mistakes as I go along. I vigorously commence this way of living as I cleaned up the past. That's the instruction to start the 10th step the day you start your amends. Just that I continue to take personal inventory, fourth step, and continue to set right any new mistakes as I go along. I vigorously commence this way of living as I cleaned up the past. That's the instruction to start the 10th step the day you start your amends. Look at the next sentence and ask yourself how often we hear this as a topic for meetings in AA. I have entered the world of the Spirit. Remember I told you in the second step we commence spiritual growth. In the fifth step we may have had certain spiritual beliefs. Now we have the spiritual experience. Well, when I get to the 10th step, having done this work, I've now entered the world of the Spirit. Why don't we talk about, you want to really screw up an AA meeting? The next one you go to and the chairman says, do you have a topic? Yes, I have a topic. I'm not there yet, but I'm curious. In the 10th step, it says we've entered the world of the Spirit. I'd like to hear from some people in this room what their experience is with having entered the world of the Spirit. And watch the meeting change to fear or something. Think about it. Look at the next sentence. It says we've entered the world of the Spirit. My next function is to grow. Circle the word grow. Is to grow in understanding of effectiveness. Is it possible that I'm supposed to grow in understanding and effectiveness of what it's like to have entered the world of the Spirit? Think about that. Is it possible? The book is suggesting that my next function is to grow in understanding of effectiveness of what it's like to have entered the world of the Spirit. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for my lifetime. It says continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Well, that's my fourth step, isn't it? When these crop up, that implies they're going to crop up. I ask God at once to remove them. That's what I do in step 6 and 7. I discuss them with someone immediately, step 5, and make amends quickly if I've harmed anyone, step 9. Then I resolutely turn my thoughts to someone I can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Now, in the next few paragraphs, we're going to read about what I call the 10-step promises. You do not hear the 10-step promises talked about much in the halls of Alcoholics Anonymous either. It was told to me by several people who have been doing this work a lot longer than me, the reason we don't hear that is because most people in AA have never finished all their amends, so they don't have any experience with the 10-step promises. Is that true? I don't know. Look at your own experience. Here's one of them. Do I have the power to operate with love and talents of others is my code. And this next sentence I absolutely love. And I have ceased fighting anything or anyone, dash, even alcohol, and alcohol is last. I have ceased fighting anything or anyone. The IRS, the woman or man that wants to leave, the financial difficulties, the physical ailments. I have ceased fighting anything or anyone, because in the world of the Spirit, there is no room to fight anything or anyone. There's just love and service. Now, second step talks about, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore me to sanity. Look at the next sentence. For by this time, sanity will have been returned. I will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, I recoil from liquor as from a hot flame. I react sanely and normally, and I find this happens automatically. Automatically means I don't have to think about it. I will see my new attitude toward liquor has been given me without any thought or effort on my part. Now I remember asking about that question. I said to Don, wait a minute. I've worked my butt off in these steps. What do you mean? There's no thought or effort in my part. He said, you didn't go through these steps to have a changed attitude toward liquor? I said, my God, you're right, I didn't. And it told me it was given to me. It says it just comes. That is the miracle of it. I am not fighting it, neither am I avoiding temptation. I feel as though I've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. I have not even swore off. Look at the next sentence. Instead, the problem has been removed. We talked earlier about the power of choice. In the world of the Spirit, there is no more the power to choose booze than there is to stop breathing. The idea of operating in the world of the Spirit and drinking alcohol cannot coexist in the same place. You see what the book's trying to tell me? The problem's been removed in the 10th step as a result of all this other work, and I've entered the world of the Spirit. It says, it does not exist for me. The problem has been removed. It does not exist for me. What problem? Craving of the body, obsession of the mind, spirituality, the root of my problem, all those things. They've been removed. They don't exist for me anymore. And I now operate in the world of the Spirit. I'm neither cocky nor am I afraid. That is our experience. It says that is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Now I get a warning. It is easy. This is the only time the big book tells you anything is easy. And it's in the form of a deadly warning. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on my laurels. Here's what laurels are. Anything that you've ever done up through this minute that you think has something to do with keeping you sober. That's laurels. I'm headed for trouble if I do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. I am not cured of alcoholism. What I really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. Now that sentence implies something to me. If I am given a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition, what if I don't do anything to maintain my spiritual condition? Common sense says I probably may not be given the daily reprieve. Remember, we looked at something about the obsession of the mind? I am unable at certain times to remember the consequences of the last drink. You see, there may be some people in AA who have a luxury of taking a day off from prayer meditation. I am not one of them. That might be the day when I go get drunk. See what I'm saying? See what the book's trying to speak to us about? Every day is a day when I must carry the vision of God's will into all my activities. And now I get a prayer. how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. There is a difference between God's will and the vision of God's will. We all know God's will. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, treat people with respect, be kind, courteous, all the Boy Scout stuff. We know God's will. There's a huge difference between God's will and the vision of God's will for us. So what is the instruction in the book? Here's what it is. If I have to be at appointment A at 9 o'clock, I say a prayer before I go in there. God, how may I best serve thee? Let thy will, not mine, be done. And then I got another appointment at 10:30. And before I go into the appointment at 10:30, I say a prayer. God, how may I best serve thee? Let thy will, not mine, be done. It says before I begin all my activities. So as I move from one activity to another, I say a prayer. Goes on to say, these are thoughts which must go with me constantly. I can exercise my willpower along this line all I wish. It is the proper use of the will. Look what the 10 steps telling us. Sanity's been restored. I've been given the miracle of a changed attitude toward alcohol. No thought or effort on my part. The problem's been removed. It doesn't exist. I'm given a warning about staying in fit spiritual condition. I'm given a tool to stay in fit spiritual condition. And now it's telling me I can trust my will because it's aligned with God. Look at what the first and second step told us. You see the movement that's happened from the first step to where we are right now as a result of this process? These things we call the steps done out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Next paragraph's got some interesting things in it. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. You want to try a little exercise sometime? If the book's saying much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, direction from Him who has all knowledge and power, you got a little free time, nothing to do, go back through your book and highlight everything where the book tells you how to get strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. Now another little warning. If I've carefully followed directions, I have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. Remember I said we must gain access to God and then come to believe? The book time and time again talks about the power of God flowing into me. To some extent I've become God conscious. I have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. Now I want you to think about something. We all know what the first major five senses are, don't we? Seeing, hearing, taste, touch, smell. Is it possible the book is suggesting to me that I can take the world of the Spirit, my conscious relationship with God, and it can now be a sixth sense that I can use in this world just like sight? Absolutely. That's exactly what it means. My relationship with God, the power, the peace, the sense of direction and happiness now becomes a sixth sense to me, just like vision, just like hearing, just like taste, just like touch. And do you know what I found? My ego takes my God-given senses like sight and uses them to separate me from you. It does stuff like this, hearing. I go into meetings of AA and I hear middle-of-the-road solution. You know what my keen alcoholic mind says? Don't want to talk to that person, they're full of shit. What did I just do? I just separated myself from somebody that I could maybe be helpful to. Here's what I found. When I'm in touch with my sixth sense, it controls all my others. And now I can use them like God intended me to use them. Everything in my life is a direct offshoot as a result of living in the world of the Spirit, my personal relationship with God. Now I can make better use of hearing, seeing, touch, smell, taste. Wow. And what do we hear in AA about the 10th step? Well, the 10th step is about continuing to take personal inventory and making amends. Give me a break. The 10th step is about entering the world of the Spirit and growing in understanding and effectiveness about what it's like to operate in the world of the Spirit, bring it down here to move out there. That's what the 10th step is about. You see what I said about I can't imagine making amends without using the tools of the world of the Spirit to do that with? Imagine taking your relationship with God and all the tools of the 10th step and going making amends. You think making amends is any big deal? No, it's not any big deal. My relationship with God can become a sixth sense that controls all other senses, and from the time I get up till the time I go to bed, allow me to operate in that world out there. And demonstrate the two things that Dr. Bob said this whole deal's about. And every other spiritual book says, love and service. 10th step is just a little bit more than continuing to take personal inventory. How free you want to get. I told a friend this the other day. What you all call, I think, the real world, for the most part, is an illusion to me anymore. For me, the real world's the world of the Spirit. The book told us this, and we agnostic, that this world that we call the real world is an illusion. We look at a table and say it's a table. No, it's not. It's a mass of electrons. Is it possible to take the world of the Spirit and have it dominate everything that I do? All my personal relationships, my career, my physical health, everything. Yeah, I believe that's possible. And is it possible that everything is in fact an offshoot of that part of me, my spiritual being? My experience is, and a lot of people like me say, yeah, that's where it's all at today. That's why in the world of the Spirit it don't make sense. The problem's out here, and I tell people, go over here, and they look at me like I'm nuts. I got a guy I'm doing some work with. He comes to me, he's got all kinds of problems in many different areas. All of them sitting right out here. Job, relationships, all kinds of stuff. I said, good, well, we're going to go over here and work the steps. He looks at me like I'm crazy. The world of the Spirit is not a theory, I have to live it. I go over here and work in my right relationship with God, and all of a sudden, all this takes care of itself. Wow, that's interesting. Step 11. Suggest prayer and meditation. If you don't know the difference, take a dictionary and look up what prayer is and look up what meditation. They are not the same. We should not be shy in this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using prayer constantly. Prayer works if we have the proper attitude and work at prayer. Now that's interesting. It says prayer will work if I have the proper attitude. Well, don't you think it's important to know what the proper attitude is? I know all kinds of people have been in AA for years. Not once asked themselves the question, you know what? I wonder what the hell the book means when it says the proper attitude. So I went and asked several people. They all told me the same thing. It's that attitude on page 55, that I sweep aside prejudice, think honestly, and search deep within me. Remember, it says with this attitude I cannot fail. That's the attitude. See, God's world is limitless. Mine is very limited. If I close my mind, if I bring prejudice into anything I'm doing, including prayer and meditation, I've just blocked myself off. And it also uses 3 words drunks hate. Work at it. I tricked the people in my home group when they asked me to chair a meeting. Here's how I tricked them. First question. Are we all in agreement that we are sober today as a result of a relationship with a loving God as we understand Him? Absolutely, Mark. Couldn't be wrong. Oh, you're right on that one, buddy. And are we pretty much in agreement that every other relationship and everything else we do stems from that relationship? Yep, we all agree with that, Mark. Good. Then here's my third question. How much time do you spend in the morning in that relationship with your loving Father? Who would like to volunteer to speak? Nobody. But then we went around, and I heard a little honesty. 10 minutes. That person later revised it to 3. I'll submit something to you, because I just went through this exercise with a good friend. He was struggling in some areas. Basically, the spirituality was taking root in him. And I asked him how much he was doing in prayer and meditation. He initially says, I'm busy, I got to go, I'll come back later. Came back and said, well, I get in the shower, say hi to God, and hop in my car. I said, I'll tell you what, you try this for 5 days. If it doesn't work, don't do it anymore. You spend 15 minutes to a half hour in prayer and meditation, developing that relationship with God. He did. Half hour, 5 days. Everything changed overnight. Why? The book tells me why. Because in prayer and meditation, I begin to understand what it's like to operate in the world of the Spirit and operate in God's kingdom and gain access to my loving Father. And He begins to empower me, and He begins to give me ideas, and He begins to get rid of the selfishness. If I'm spending 5 or 10 minutes in meditation, that's what I'm taking out in the world all day. And by 10 o'clock, we're crazy. Right? I heard this about, I could start my day over at AA any time. That's true. Why don't you just start it in the morning? Lay your foundation. It's not necessary. How does it go sometimes? Let's see, I'm too busy. You just don't understand? Well, I don't know. Think about how much time you're spending in the morning in that relationship with God. And if your experience is like mine, which is that my entire world as I know it is derived from that relationship, consider the idea of spending a little more time with Him in the morning, and I will guarantee you awesome results during the day. Try it. Test it. If it doesn't work, call me and bitch at me. Now, I want to skip this paragraph about retire at night, and I want to start with upon awakening. When I get up in the morning, I begin with, when I'm going through the work, with a set-aside prayer. I do a 3rd-step prayer and a 7th-step prayer, and then I open my book to page 86. And I go through these instructions, and I say every prayer that this asks me to pray. And then I go back and I read all of the 10th step, and I pick up all the tools available to me from the world of the Spirit. Then I spend time just praying for people. And then I take a period of time in meditation, and my goal in the period of meditation is to get quiet and just feel and experience the presence of God. So, let's look at what it tells me. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Circle the word think and circle the word consider, because they are different. I'm going to show you how to take the work you do when we retire at night into your meditation when we get up in the morning. There's a difference between thinking about the 24 hours ahead and then considering the plans for the day. In thinking, when I've done my nightly review, if there's some stuff I got to clean up, plus I answer some questions of what God wants me to be. So when I think about the day, I think about, God, what do you want me to be? What is your vision for me in all my areas? Then I consider my plans, meaning I got to be here at 9, here at 10:30, here at 12, here at 1. Before I begin, meaning before I begin my day, here's my first prayer. I ask God to direct my thinking, and I especially ask my thinking be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Now look at the promise. Under these conditions, meaning having asked God in this prayer, I can employ my mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave me brains to use. My thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when my thinking is clear of wrong motives. Now I get another prayer. In thinking about my day, I may face indecision. I may not be able to determine which course to take. So in my morning meditation, if there's some things that need to make a decision, I'm now given another prayer. Here I ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. And then I relax and take it easy. I don't struggle. I'm often surprised how the right answers come after I tried this for a while. What used to be a hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that I'm going to be inspired at all times. Some of us have been around AA have suffered from this next one. I might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. I absolutely know God wants me to marry this woman I met 2 days ago. He spoke very clearly to me. Says, nevertheless, I find my thinking will, as time passes, be more and more in the plane of inspiration. I come to rely upon it. Now I'm going to be given some more prayers. I usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer, that I be shown all through the day what my next step is to be, that I be given whatever I need to take care of such problems. Another prayer. I ask especially for freedom from self-will, and I'm careful to make no requests for myself only. It says I may ask for myself, however, if others will be helped. I had to have an elder explain that to me. Here's what it means. Mark, if you're real judgmental, you can't help others. So in your prayer, ask God to remove that part of you so that you can help people that day. That's what it means. I can ask for myself if others will be helped. If I'm being judgmental, I can't help you. If I'm in fear, I cannot help you. So I look at any areas, anything going on with me that prevents me from being of help to you. And I ask God to remove that. It says I'm careful never to pray for my own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that. It doesn't work. You can see why. If circumstances weren't, I ask wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. For some of us, the word wives is appropriate here. If I belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, I attend to that also. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles that we have been discussing. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Let me read that again. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. Now I'm going to be given some more spiritual tools. As I go through the day, I pause when agitated or doubtful. Those are fairly constant states for alcoholics and addicts, by the way. And I ask God for the right thought or action. How many of you in here have ever asked God for the right thought? Not action, the right thought. Some of you have. I constantly remind myself I'm no longer running the show, humbly saying to myself many times each day, thy will be done. That's another spiritual exercise to use all through the day. Here's the promise if I do this stuff. And they use an interesting word. They use the word danger. It says I'm then in much less danger of excitement. Think about that. Excitement is dangerous for an alcoholic and an addict. It's dangerous for us. It says I'm then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. I become much more efficient. I do not tire so easily, for I'm not burning up energy foolish as I did when I was trying to arrange life to suit me. This next paragraph. It works, it really does. I am undisciplined, so I let God discipline me in the simple way we just outlined. Now, turn back to page 86. We get an exercise for when we retire at night. Here's what it says. When I retire at night, I constructively review my day. Now I'm going to go through a series of questions. Was I resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid today? My answer for all four of this every day since I first did this work is yes. Do I owe an apology? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Have I kept something to myself which should be discussed with another person at once? And I look at that. Was I kind and loving toward all? Uh-oh. I didn't do very well there. And I love that. Was I kind and loving toward all? The little gal at the checkout counter that's got a stream full of people wading through. The gas station attendant. The lady at the dry cleaners. Was I kind and loving toward all? What could I have done better? Well, I spent 3 minutes in prayer and meditation. I think if I'd maybe spent a little more time like that crazy Mark talked about. What could I have done better today? Was I thinking of myself most of the time? I tell the clients this. If there was a device that measured how often you and I think of ourselves, and we woke up at 8, the thing would blow up by 9. We are so turned inward, it's absolutely incredible. Was I thinking of myself? Most of the time. Yeah, I did a lot of that today. Or was I thinking of what I could do for others, of what I could pack into the stream of life? Let me explain what happened in the process of doing this work. There was a time when my life was fragmented, meaning I'd get up in the morning and I had that life. And then I'd go to work and I had that life. And then I had AA and I had that life. Today, I'm involved in the stream of life. I can't tell whether I'm in AA or out in the world. Why? Because I operate in the world of the Spirit all the time, and it's all the same. Today, when I'm in recovery, I'm also in the fellowship and service. When I'm working with someone else, I'm in recovery and in the fellowship. Today, I'm involved in the stream of life. It is one continuing process based on operating from the world of the Spirit. My life is not segmented anymore. I don't have AA over here, and my job over here, and my friends over here. I operate in what's called the stream of life today. It says, but I must be careful not to drift into... Now this is interesting. Think about this. I must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. And then it tells me why. Think about this. The reason we are worried, remorseful, or morbid reflection is we're thinking about ourselves again. And here's what it tells us. It says, because that diminishes my usefulness to others. When you walk around being worried, you are not available to help anyone else. God never intended for you and I to worry. You worry because you're operating on self-reliance. When you operate on God's reliance, you never have to worry. You're available always to help your fellow traveler on the path. Book says, Mark, don't drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, because if you do, you can't be useful and helpful. After making my nightly review, I ask God's forgiveness, and I inquire what corrective measures should be taken. When I get up in the morning, I've asked Him the night before what corrective measures to take. That flows me right into my 10th step. When I think about my plans for the day, well, the day before, I was real short with 2 people, and I want to go make amends to them a day. You see how it flows? I take my nightly review, get up in the morning, and I let the information that I got from that nightly review take me into this day. I operate in the world today in steps 10 and 11 based on the power given in steps 1 through 9. That's another reason I go back through the work. I can't imagine operating in 1994 based on the truth I saw in 93. I do steps 1 through 9 based on the power given to me in steps 10 and 11. I make my amends based on the power given to me in steps 10 and 11. I'm able to be of service to others based on operating in 10 and 11. 10 and 11 are 2 of the most powerful steps this whole program gives me. 1 for operating in the world of the Spirit. Let that now be a 6th sense that I can take out here. And the 11th step for that relationship with God. Chapter 7, working with others. I said before, and this is my opinion, that virtually every problem in Alcoholics Anonymous today could be solved by good sponsorship. They devote a whole chapter in working with others. And I suspect that we're going to smash some middle-of-the-road stuff about working with others. I had the kind of sponsor who was a world trustee in Alcoholics Anonymous. He talked to me much more than I cared to hear for a long time about the traditions. And I was talking with Tom, and he talked to me about the world concepts, and that stuff is still foreign and Greek to me. But he was involved in all 3 parts of the program. That's the path that God took him down. He's the one, through sharing all of his experience with me, gave me the tools necessary so when I sponsor someone else. I have a home group. I support that home group. I show up at all the group consciousness when I'm in town. I support that home group financially. I'm there to help newcomers when they come to that home group. Why? Because my sponsor pointed out to me that that was a responsibility that I had. I'm here to defend the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous till they put dirt on me. You come to a closed meeting that I'm attending and don't introduce yourself as an alcoholic or at least a desire to quit drinking, I'll ask you to leave. Why? Because that's the way he's set up. That's why. Singleness of purpose. I totally embrace and support the traditions in this program. That came to me through sponsorship. So, working with others. Practical experience shows nothing so much will ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. The word intensive is kind of interesting to look at. It says, it works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this, highlight the word this. Carry this message to other alcoholics. Please do not carry your message. On any given day, your message is like mine. It's selected parts of the big book, some of the Bible, some different books of philosophy, a little of the grapevine, and a whole bunch of my opinion. None of which will keep any of you sober. Carry this message to other alcoholics. That's why you see me and people I do work with carry this book with us to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because if I get a chance to work with a newcomer and they ask me questions, I'm going to go into this book so that what they hear, they see comes out of this book, not just out of my mouth. Remember the foreword of the first edition? To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered. I'll sit and talk to a new man, new woman, and I'll field questions, and I'll keep going to this book, time and time again. So our responsibility is to carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they're very ill. And I love this next paragraph. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up around you, to have a host of friends, this is an experience you must not miss. I absolutely love that sentence, and it has been my experience. I was telling a friend of mine, there's several of you in here that I was given a chance to carry this message to, a message you'd never heard before, never been able to stay sober before, or dying of untreated alcoholism. And I look at you now and I look at your lives, and the difference is absolutely incredible. That's the payoff for me. One drunk working with another drunk and watching that drunk's life change, watching God operate in that individual's life. That's the greatest high in the world. That's what the whole deal's all about for me. I wish to God we'd never have to do another workshop anywhere. I wish we could walk into meetings of AA everywhere across the United States and the world, and if you were new, hear the common solution in which we could absolutely agree, so we wouldn't have to do these anymore. And maybe we could get a recovery rate of 75% like it used to be. But we can't. Why? Because the message in the fellowship is not the message in the book. That's why. So I guess we're just going to keep going to these workshops for a little bit longer. Till there's more of you out there that are carrying this message, and where we can reach a place in time where we don't have to do them anymore. If you've done the work, this is the promises you get. Life takes on new meaning. You'll watch people recover. You'll see them help others. You'll watch loneliness vanish. You see a fellowship grow up around you. You'll have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Goes on to say, perhaps you're not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. You can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. They'll be only too glad to assist you. Do not start out as an evangelist or reformer. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You'll be handicapped if you arouse it. Ministers and doctors are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish. But it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics, so cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. Now, we're going to get a lot of instructions on working with new people. Here's the first one. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. I go to meetings. You know what I hear from the chairperson? If you got less than 90 days, we don't want to hear anything you got to say. How in the hell do I find out anything about him? Book says, Mark, you need to find out everything you can about this man or woman if you're going to help him. What are we doing telling newcomers you ain't got nothing to say? I don't understand that. Do you understand that? I don't. Gee, I wonder if that's a little bit about our pompous alcoholic egos. I don't know. I just know what the book says. If he doesn't want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. That's an instruction. You may spoil later opportunity. You know, I was talking with Joe about this. We work our butts off with drunks sometimes, right? And we work and work and work and work and work. Hours and hours and hours and months and hell, sometimes years. 5 people I do the work with, and it's not pigeon, and it's not baby, and it's not that other crap I hear in AA that I believe is demeaning. Here's the word. Even though your protege, isn't that sweet? Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question if he will. Squiggly lines. Tell him exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual feature freely. And they go back out, and a simple case of beer does what 9,000 hours working with me could never do. That's what I think the book's trying to say. If he doesn't want to stop drinking, do not waste time trying to persuade him. If there's any indication he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his backgrounds, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. Basically, find out everything you can about him. You need this information to put yourself in his place to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. I need this information to determine how to talk to a new man and a new woman. That's why it's asking me, find out all you can. I'll give you an example. If I'm dealing with somebody who's been to treatment 15 times, had a lot of periods of sobriety in and out of AA, I can assure you what they hear from me is going to be a lot different from the first time the guy's ever walked into an AA meeting in his life. Going to be much different. That's why I think it's telling me, find out all I can, put myself in his place. Sometimes it's wise to wait till he goes on a binge. The family may object to this, but unless he's in a dangerous physical condition, it's better to risk it. Don't deal with him when he's very drunk unless he's ugly and the family needs your help. Wait for the end of a spree, or at least for a lucid interval. Then, look at this question. Then let his family or friend ask him, do you want to quit for good? And will you go to any extreme to do so? That's a question I ask people who want to do the work with me. Do you want to quit for good? And are you willing to go to any extreme to do so? I'll give you an exercise I do. It'll save you a lot of time. Separate the wheat from the chaff. Someone comes up and says, Mark, would you do the work with me? Well, I don't know. Let me give you a little exercise. Here's the exercise. Go out and buy a new big book. Read the first 164 pages. Answer these 4 questions in writing. When you're done, call me. First question, is this work what you want to do? Second question, why do you want to do this work? Third question, are you willing to go to any length? Fourth question, what areas are you being dishonest with yourself and others? Here's the good news about that exercise. 10 people ask you to do the work with them. At best, 2 will call you. They will not be the 2 you wished would call you. They will be the helpless, hopeless, burned out alcoholic who needs power. That is not the one who you wanted to call you. The one driving the Jag with the nice watch. It's a guy that's got his toes sticking out of his shoes, can't talk, and smells like hell. But he needs this. He needs power. You do that exercise, it'll save you tremendous time. Now you're going to see where that exercise comes. It comes out of this book. Book's going to tell you on the first visit, give the guy a book, ask him to read it. Go back and on the second time, ask him, are you ready to go through the 12 steps? But when I went to that exercise, it saved a lot of time. Now, let's keep going. If he says yes, meaning he wants to quit for good and he's willing to go to the extreme to do so, then his attention should be drawn to you as a person who has recovered. Geez, there's that word again. You should be described to him as one of a fellowship who, as part of their own recovery, try to help others and who will be glad to talk to him if he cares to see you. If he doesn't want to see you, never force yourself upon him. I've never understood sponsors who call their proteges all the time. What's it say? If he doesn't want to see you, never force yourself upon him. I would like to tell you that Don cared for me so much he called me with a lot of frequency, but that would be a lie. He never called me. You know why? He knew what he had to do to stay sober. He knew I needed to learn how to do that. It's not that he loved me. It's because he did love me. He did 2 things with me all the time. He talked about God all the time, and he took me into this book. That's what he did. He made real sure that my dependency was not upon him, that it was upon God and these spiritual exercises as outlined in this book. It says, neither should the family hysterically plead with him to do anything, nor should they tell him much about you. They should wait for the end of his next drinking bout. You might place this book where he can see it in the interval. I've always enjoyed that visual, right? You sneak a book into the drug's house, right? He comes home, he's loaded. Oh, Jesus, another big book, right? Slams the thing to the side. It keeps showing up in the counter. It says here, no specific rule can be given. The family must decide these things, but urge them not to be over anxious, for that might spoil matters. Usually the family should not try to tell your story. When possible, avoid meeting a man through his family. Approach through a doctor or institution's a better bet. If your man needs hospitalization, he should have it, but not forcibly unless he's violent. Let the doctor, if he will, tell him he has something in the way of a solution. When your man is better, the doctor might suggest a visit from you. Though you have talked with the family, leave them out of the first discussion. Under these conditions, your prospect will see he's under no pressure. He will feel he can deal with you without being nagged by his family. Call on him while he's still jittery. See again this program. In the chapter 2 of the wives, they list 4 categories of alcoholics. You know who has the best chance? The drunk who's number 4. He's the one that's locked up in institutions and he's being committed. In this program, the more helpless and hopeless you are when you come in, the better chance you got. It's another paradox. So, see your man alone if possible. At first, engage in general conversation. After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. If he wishes to talk, let him do so. You will thus get a better idea how you ought to proceed. If he is not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit. But say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. See, what we're doing now is we're talking about the hopelessness of our disease and how we drank. If he's in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor's caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades, get him to tell some of his. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were, how you finally learned you were sick. Give him an account of the struggles you made to stop. Show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. We suggest you do this as we've done it in the chapter on alcoholism. If he is alcoholic, he will understand you at once. He will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. If you are satisfied he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. Don't at this stage refer to this book unless he has seen it and he wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusion. If he sticks to the idea he can still control his drinking, tell him possibly he can if he's not too alcoholic. But insist if he is severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors will rightly loathe to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. But you may talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, the traits of the alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him he's alcoholic, so much the better. Now the next sentence is the only time in the book I find a word used to describe or atheist, make it empathetic. He doesn't have to agree with your concept of God. He can choose any concept he likes provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. Now I hear in AA, oh, let's not talk about God, we might drive the newcomer off. Where is that coming from? This is pretty black and white, isn't it? About what I need to talk about. The main thing is that I tell the new guy he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and you live by spiritual principles. When dealing with such a person, you better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. There's no use arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. Don't raise such issues no matter what your own convictions are. Next paragraph's interesting. Your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. His religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he's going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. But he will be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and why yours seem to work so well. He may be example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. To be vital, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. Let him see you are not there to instruct him in religion. Admit that he probably knows more about it than you do. But call to his attention the fact that whatever deep his faith and knowledge, he could not have applied it or he would not drink. I've done the work with many men in AA who know a lot more about religion and the Bible than I ever thought of knowing. But I ask them a simple question. That's real neat that you know all that. When was the last time you got drunk or loaded? Well, 2 nights ago. Well, is it doing you much good? No, it's not. This is where the book talks to me about having to deal with that man or that woman because they got a ton of prejudice. They know more about God. They are educated about God far beyond their capacity to understand any of it. And it's not working for them. The book says, call to his attention the fact, however deep his faith and knowledge, he could not have applied it or he would not drink. What good is faith and knowledge if I'm doing dope and drinking alcohol? I don't think it's any good. It's like I quote the Bible all over the page and I shoot dope in my arm. You want what I have? I don't think so. See what I'm saying? It says perhaps your story will help him see he's failed to practice the very precepts he knows so well. We represent no particular faith or denomination. We're dealing only with general principles common to most denominations. Outline the program of action, explaining how you made a self-appraisal, how you straightened out your past, that's amends, and why you're now endeavoring to be helpful to him. It is important for him to realize your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. Actually, he may be helping you more than you are helping him. Make it plain that he is under no obligation to you, that you hope only he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. Suggest how important it is he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. Make it clear he's not under pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. You should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he's helped you more than you've helped him. If your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, you perhaps made a friend. Maybe you disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. That is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. Another paradox, right? He'll be more likely to follow your suggestions. Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all the program. He may rebel at the thought of a drastic house cleaning, which requires discussion with other people. Do not contradict such views. Tell him you once felt as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. On your first visit, tell him about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. If he shows interest, lend him your copy of this book. Unless your friend wants to talk further about himself, don't wear out your welcome. Give him a chance to think it over. If you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. Sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he'll likely say you rushed him. You will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for crusader reform. Never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. That's the 12 steps. Highlight the next sentence. Show him how they work with you. Second time the book says, I'm here to show you. Offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him if he wants to get well, you'll do anything to help. If he is not interested in your solution, if he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulties or a nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. Oh, if he is sincerely interested and wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. Remember the first instruction? Have him buy a new book, read the 164 pages. After doing that, he must decide for himself whether he wants to go on. He should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or friends. If he is to find God, the desire must come from within. If he thinks he can do the job in some other way or prefers some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his own conscience. We have no monopoly on God. We merely have an approach that works with us. But point out we alcoholics have much in common, and you would like in any case to be friendly, and let it go at that. Page 96, do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Search out another alcoholic and try again. You are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced he cannot recover by himself. To spend too much time in any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and to be happy. To live and to be happy. To live and to be happy. One of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He often says if he had continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. Next paragraph says, suppose now, Mark, you're making your second visit to a man. He's read this volume and says he is prepared to go through with the 12 steps of the program recovery. Second visit to a man. Having had the practical experience yourself, you can give him much practical advice. Let him know you're available if he wishes to make a decision, and tell a story, but do not insist upon it if he prefers to consult someone else. He may be broke or homeless. If he is, you might try to help him by getting a job or give him a little financial assistance. But you should not deprive your family or creditors of money they should have. Perhaps you want to take the man into your home for a few days, but be sure to use discretion. Be certain he will be welcomed by your family. Honey, I'd like to bring this guy that's got puke all over him home for a couple of days. Be certain he'll be welcomed by your family and that he's not trying to impose upon you for money, connections, or shelter. Permit that and you only harm him. You'll be making it possible for him to be insincere. You may be aiding in his destruction rather than his recovery. Never avoid these responsibilities, but be sure you're doing the right thing if you assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. That's an important sentence. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be. It may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interference with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. It may mean sharing your money in your home, counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to police courts, sanitariums, hospital, jails, and asylums. Your telephone may jangle any time of the day or night. Your wife may sometimes say she is neglected. A drunk may smash the furniture in your home or burn a mattress. You may have to fight with him if he's violent. Sometimes you'll have to call a doctor and administer sedatives under the doctor's direction. Another time you may have to send for the police or an ambulance, and occasionally you're going to have to meet such conditions. We seldom allow an alcoholic to live in our homes for long at a time. It is not good for him, and it sometimes creates serious complications in a family. Though an alcoholic does not respond, there's no reason why you should neglect his family. You should continue to be friendly to them. The family should be offered your way of life. Should they accept and practice spiritual principles, there is a much better chance the head of the family will recover. And even though he continues to drink, the family will find life more bearable. For the type of alcoholic who is able and willing to get well, little charity in the ordinary sense of the word is needed or wanted. The men who cry for money and shelter before conquering alcohol are on the wrong track. Yet we do go to great extremes to provide each other with these very things when such action warranted. This may seem inconsistent, but we think it is not. Then the next paragraph.